These are the Gym Green AnatomX African Rangers. And right out of the box, I can tell you that they are the widest boots that I've ever worn. My first experience with Gym Green boots was about 1.5 years ago when they came out with their barefoot African Trooper line, which is the 8-inch tall variant of the African Ranger. And it just was not wide enough for me. Mainly my pinky toe was rubbing, and it also overhung, my big toe would overhang this area a lot. But with this boot, as soon as I put them on, I was actually able to have space for both sides of my foot. My pinky toe and my big toe could actually wiggle outward and splay, which I've never been able to experience in anything other than basically, I guess, a Croc or a sandal. I decided to go with the Bronco leather, mainly due to the look of it, but also because of the supposed more water resistance, due to its being more of an oily leather than their normal nubuck, fudge, and I think Houston black is what they have it in currently. And just look at the coloration when you bend it at certain points. It's quite remarkable. I decided to go about a half size bigger than I normally would, at least going by my normal Brannock sizing. And I'm glad that I did, because I have a higher than average instep and just higher volume feet overall, which these and all my Gym Green boots do accommodate. But I have bought one in my normal Brannock sizing and I regret it. I wish I would have gone up to 12.5, and I'll show you why. These are the Roughout Vellies, or Vellies, however you pronounce it. And I ordered them in size 12, which is my usual Brannock sizing. And I immediately figured out that my instep was so high, basically it's almost like this. I had to get new laces. It comes with normal paracord laces, but I just had to get almost, I think, 8 inches longer of lace to actually be able to tie tight enough and have enough room for tying the knots that I want and the wiggle room that it needs. On top of that, I originally thought that these were going to be wider than some of the other boots that I've tried, such as the Barefoot African Troopers. But as you can see, there's a lot to be left desired on this one. Granted, it is a half size smaller, but the main problem with these is actually my pinky toe. As you can see, I've worn them a fair bit and they already just naturally overhang the welt, which I know it's not technically bad, but there's a lot of pressure on my pinky toe when I do that. And when I first got these, when I was walking around, it immediately, folded over like that. With these, they have not folded over at all compared to my other boots. I do get a bit of, I'm sure everybody gets it, but I have a flat arch and very wide boxy feet in general. Tend to hang over quite a lot. Here's just a quick comparison of what the sole looks like. And another thing about the sole, I don't have the old traction pattern, the anvil triangular traction pattern that's on the old Barefoot line, but I actually didn't. Some people say they like that one more for the grip. I just didn't like how all the small lugs would get just impacted and covered in mud or whatever I'm going through, and would be like impossible to get out. Up to this point, my favorite Gym Green boots have actually been the standard tan Razorbacks that I got shortly after my Barefoot African Troopers. And these definitely had a wider toe box and just wider throughout than the Barefoot African Troopers. And of course, the Vellies. But still, my big toe and the ball of my foot definitely overhung a lot in this boot. One thing I neglected to mention, my left foot is almost a half a size or more than half a size smaller than my right foot, and you can see how different this crease on the right boot forms due to that. At first, I was getting a lot of heel slippage with these, and it's Roughout inner on that spot. And it took until now pretty much to stop giving me blisters there. And the inner calf skin lining is one thing I really like about these Razorbacks. They are just really soft. I don't even have to wear medium weight or heavyweight wool socks anymore with these. And these are the same size boot, both 12.5 US. And you can just see how much wider the new barefoot AnatomX Rangers are. And it's so noticeable when I put it on my foot. It's crazy. Another big difference between these two is there's no structured toe in these. So you cannot get pretty big dents like that, but they should always just puff right back out. These are also a single layer of leather compared to the Razorback having the two-piece throughout the entire upper. They do feel a lot more flexible than the Razorbacks, just right out of the box, even though the Bronco leather is a full grain leather compared to the Fudge or Houston Black Nubuck, which is supposedly more flexible. And the Houston Brown that I had on my Barefoot African Troopers was a lot more flexible. This is also a single layer, but it being a Fudge Roughout, it's so much less rigid. Takes a lot of force to put that down. Where's this? And these are almost the same in the amount of force that it takes to compress. Another thing I noticed, I actually had to add these, I think the brand is Pedag. I'll try to link it if I can find it. They are suede tongue pads. And I've had these on for about 6 months and they're not even close to coming off. And that was to help with the heel lift problem that was rubbing my ankles every time I wore these. And it helped a lot at first, but it didn't really stop until more recently. And that's another big difference between these. I feel like these have more room for your instep than these. I can hardly, they say to fold this like a bellows tongue like this. So it's more supportive up against your instep without any sharp edges. And it's just better for the tongue leather itself. Mine, I'll show you, but it definitely is hard to get in there. So I definitely prefer the tongue. The only con that I see with these so far, and I've seen other reviewers mention it, see how stiff it is? It just comes out like this. And to get your foot in there, you really have to open it up. This part right here, particularly, and the sides, really dig into your heel, or not heel, but your upper ankle where this cuff, it's padded. I think there's some foam in there. There's foam in the Razorback one, but because this one is calf lining, it is so much softer, and I never had any issues with this hurting my upper ankle. This immediately, I'm gonna have to wear some thick, otherwise there's no pinching or chafing or anything on throughout the heel or the midfoot, which have had on some of the other boots until I broke them in. Here's a comparison of their outsoles. Definitely a lot softer rubber, and especially on these siped sections, you can feel that that's probably going to wear out first compared to this lug. This is actually the if it has this yellow on your Razorback, it's the older, harder sole, and apparently they last a lot longer. Can barely make an indent with my fingernail, versus over here it feels quite a bit softer, but this I think is harder than the old Barefoot Anvil outsole, which I like. Sort of off topic, but I have noticed with these, they do smell, but compared to the Barefoot African Troopers that I had, their nubuck smells a lot more strongly than this. Like if you leave a slightly sweaty or just walked in pair of Fudge nubuck or Houston Brown nubuck Jim Green boots in a laundry room, you'll go in there and it's just overpowering leather smell. This is a lot more subtle, but it still has that strong, pleasant leather smell. Another thing I ought to mention with the Razorbacks, I had to do a lot of stretching early on with the toe box down here. It was rubbing the top of my big toe as well. And I know that's something they mention a lot, and some people like it, some people don't. I don't like it. It gave me a lot of big calluses early on, and I actually shaved down some of the insole. So this one comes with an insole and some arch support, but this one has nothing. It's just a flat veg tan leather. This has a lot more vertical toe room just visually, but it also is unstructured. There's a thermoplastic cap here that would rub through the leather onto the top of your toes. This one does not have any of that, obviously, and is much more comfortable. As far as looks go, my girlfriend immediately noted how wide these look. And, you know, for a lot of people who wear it, they don't care, and I don't care. But I don't think it would be possible to pull this particular boot off in any sort of formal setting without maybe getting the occasional side eye. Another comparison I want to make is the Lems Chelsea waterproof. I got these just for a good pull-on waterproof boot, and I was kind of I bought these after I tried their Summits, the Boulder Summits, and I ordered, I think it was a size 12 because they said that they run big, so order your normal size, and I could not even get my foot in that boot. The lacing, it was basically like the Vellies, where I could not fit my instep in, but 10 times worse. And so I did a bunch of digging, and apparently their Chelsea boots tend to be the widest. I think that might be for the non-waterproof variant, but for the purpose that I wanted it for, I decided to get waterproof anyway. And immediately, they do fit, and the toe box is comparable to my Razorback, so there's no pinching or rubbing when I'm walking around. But my toes are not able to splay like some people's are. And just in general, the boot is a lot more narrow. It's just meant for, Lems does not have wide sizing as far as I know. This boot is just way more narrow than any of the Jim Green boots that I have, particularly in the heel and midfoot is where I get some rubbing, and even in my bigger right foot, I get some numbness if I'm not walking. But if I'm walking around and there's movement and I'm not wearing a super thick sock, which that's another thing, these get hot because they're waterproof and there's no air circulation whatsoever down at the toes. But overall, I think these are good for their purpose, but I definitely would prefer a wider, potentially AnatomX Green Chelsea, because I haven't heard that the normal Chelseas that they offer are wide enough for a lot of people. But if they made one like this, I don't know if they do customs yet, I would definitely consider. So if you are somebody with a very wide foot throughout and has struggled to find a sturdy boot that fits your foot shape, if you have a blocky, like straight up, straight across kind of foot, this may not fit as well. It would definitely fit, I think, better than any of their other boots. My particular foot has that slant to it, with my big toe being the tallest and slanting down to the pinky toe, and it works just fine for me. Testing the weight on these are about 1 pound 12 ounces for the right boot. See how close they are. 1 pound, round up to 12 ounces pretty much. Razorback's definitely heavier. 2 pounds, almost 1 ounce. For the left boot. For the right boot, it is a little bit more. Then the Vellies, these still feel pretty heavy for how much lighter or how much less leather they have. 1 pound, almost 8 ounces for the right. And same for the left. These will be definitely the lightest out of all of these. Not even a pound, 14 ounces for the right. And 14 for the left. And for the Keens, 1 pound 8.5 ounces. 1 pound 8 and almost a half. A more mainstream wide toe box, quote unquote, boot is Keen. Their Targhee line is the only one that I'm familiar with. These are, I think, the Targhee IVs, their newest one, in size 12. And these actually feel very comfortable to me, more comfortable than the Lems in terms of foot shape. They are wider throughout the whole foot, but they are lacking a bit in the toe box. They're about the same as the Razorbacks. Comparing the Razorbacks and these, of course, these are lighter, but one thing I don't like is their tongue is not gusseted up very high. So water, or particularly for me, I walk through a lot of tall grass seeds, and just grass gets in, and you got to take your shoe off and clean that out. I very rarely get that with the Razorbacks, and I assume the same for these. These are actually gusseted up higher. So this is just initial impressions. I have worn these around the house a bit, but in my next video, I'm gonna have to try these out, wear probably my thickest socks, and probably higher than my normal quarter socks that I wear with my other boots. These are just at where some of my quarter socks end, so just to be safe, wear crew socks, and hopefully break in this ankle cuff area on these boots, and this will probably end up being my most comfortable boot that I have, especially when it comes to heritage built, sturdy, stitched down boots.